And I think we're live. Welcome to the show, Shills and Friends. Gog, Magog, Tartaria, North America. And I'm here with Brian Annable. You here, B?
I'm here, man.
Cool. Let me make sure it's working real quick. Friends. All right, it's working. So, it's been crazy couple weeks, but the last couple days have been nuts, man.
Yeah, it has. It
And
has.
I think that besides the drama, I think the information, a couple videos that you share with me, were pretty good. I mean, you proved that Tartaria or Tartars went to, what was it? What New Brunswick? What do they call that area up there now?
Cape
Cape
Breton Island.
Breton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Cape Breton Island on the East Coast Canada. They're Nova Scotia, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, that's just it. I've convinced myself completely that, and man, we've been covering this for so long. It just blows my mind that we didn't see this before, or I didn't catch it. But the whole
We yeah.
John Cabot thing, the whole Christopher Columbus thing. Now
Oh yeah.
go ahead.
No, we were covering this in, I think it was last, man, like winter
It was a
last
bit
year.
ago. It was a bit ago, yeah.
I remember spring, and like it was spring, but we were started in like the winter, and we were covering it like almost half the year,
Hmm.
like researching that area. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
And
We didn't even know it. We didn't even
I
know we were
know,
so close to the Tartar thing.
I know.
And I'm kind of glad because I see all these channels on YouTube trying to mix Tartar up with mud flood and this and that and giant trees and
Yeah.
other crazy shit. I'm watching Martin Lidke, run it into the ground with his nonsense,
Hmm.
and I'm seeing the psyop that what they're trying to hide us from, what they're trying to hide from us actually is what I should say. And it is crazy. I mean, I've been discussing this with another fella, and he kind of sees it too, right? I've been letting Tiffany in on a little bit of this stuff here and there with Gog and Magog because it's biblical, man, and I take the Bible for what it says most of the time, like. And so this really, what these shills are doing is hiding this information. They're always trying to cover up Rome. They're always trying to cover up true history, and they're trying to keep us, like I always say, on a hamster wheel spinning so that they can't bring us new information, Johnny, right? They can't go on to the next subject because they got to stay in the loop, right?
Hmm.
That cycle that they put us in, so they keep asking for money, right?
Well, the one videos you shared with me, that one channel, I think it was like Seven Cities or whatever it's called.
Mm.
That one video was more information than I got from what 5 6 months of
Yep.
Martin and Philip and those other dudes. I
Yep.
mean, don't get me wrong. I'm thankful for them opening our eyes to this shit. Even the
Of
mud
course.
flood is very interesting.
Of course.
Like the doors are fucking made for giants, and it's a great joke in real life when you tell like your friends like, "Hey, look at that door! A fucking giant could walk through that thing."
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. I love the
But
giant project. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's great. It's great. It is like a side off thing of like the flat Earth conspiracies or whatever. But anyway, so this Magog thing, I'm very interested in it. So is there two giants, or is there one giant and Magog's the place the giant lives? Because I've seen both like
That's I've
stories.
I've seen both too. The Bible says that Gog is from the land of Magog. Okay. Wait.
Yeah.
The medieval tale was based on the New Testament's distortion of Gog from the land of Magog. Okay. In Revelation 20, verse 7 8, as Gog and Magog, the peoples thus invented, found their way beyond ecclesiastical circles via popular legends and stories. All right. So yeah, there's two different stories, but I think because of the statues that I see in London of Gog, I think it's actually Gog from the land of Magog. Gog was the king of Magog, which was a Tartarian province, I guess. That's how you say it? Province, I suppose. State,
Mm-hmm.
right? Whatever. whatever
Yeah, I
your
would say the
stance
same.
is.
I would say that's the same. Yeah, because isn't it up there where they
It's up
say it was?
it's up in northern China, right? We're after the Great Wall, where the Great Wall is. Okay, so the Great Wall of China, we're all led to believe that the Chinese built that to keep
Yeah,
their land safe. But
but
from what I'm, go ahead.
no, but there's something. Is this? I think I heard this from you. Like, this, they did it to keep in people, right?
From what I'm reading in this story, it's the Great Wall was built to enclose the Magog, Gog and Magog.
Oh,
Okay, because they were taking over everything.
interesting. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it was
That makes
Rome,
sense.
Alexander, right?
But so you don't think Gog and Magog could have got over the wall?
I think they got, I think they got starved out, killed off.
Yeah,
There's talk in this book about them be having used chemical warfare and germ warfare, and I guess
trying to kill him.
the Black Plague wiped a
So
lot of them
how?
out.
What do these giants like live forever or some shit?
Not
I mean, that's.
forever, but
I'm just saying. I
a
obviously,
long
but what
time.
I'm. Yeah, like long enough to be in the Bible, and then
Mm.
still be in history. When that map was that, but that map wasn't. So when did they supposedly die or kill him?
All right, so this I think was in like, let me see if I can find a date. I want to say 14, 15th and okay. So the pseudo-Methodian revelations enjoyed on they were printed in numerous editions during the 15th and 16th centuries.
So like 1300 or
Yeah,
something.
13 foot. This was a 10th century Latin translation. Wait, that was from the Greek Alexander Romance. Okay. So the later implemented versions of the 11th, 12th centuries,
So does this
1185, 1236
does this
describe the
time up with what you would see, what you would think with when the Bible was written, and it's in the Bible that this Gog is in the Bible, and
yeah, it
that
lines up with the Bible. And
I mean
see,
the timeline though,
it would line up with the timeline if we could account for that 1,000 or 1,500 years gap, right?
that Dark Ages.
That Dark Ages, the Middle Ages, right?
So
This
they
is when this
changed it.
all went down.
So we're actually in it. So I think what we're hit our little new conspiracy that we're hitting is that we're actually still in Revelations, and that we're this is just 1,000 years ago.
Something like that. Maybe that's why science is trying to confuse us with all these big numbers. 30,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, billions of years ago. Maybe they're trying to just
Because
mind.
how could it be like 500 years ago? This Gog giant was there
Yeah,
still, unless the motherfucker lived to be 1,000, or that's not even
exactly.
still not enough years.
And
I'm
I guess
sorry
it was
for
Alexander
words.
the Great that enclosed them behind a mountain. And there's two stories here. There's Gog and Magog, and then there's a people's called the Red Jews. Okay, and so the Red Jews are summed up in this book as being Gog and Magog. Okay, and then there's the 12 lost tribes of Israel that my friend brought up, and I'm just like, whoa, man. And then there's that Cape Breton stuff where they allegedly came over here and settled, and I'm just way before Columbus and Cabot. So the timeline is what we're trying to figure
Mm-hmm.
out, right? It seems like the Dark Ages, when they made the globe map, it was the Middle Ages, right?
Now if I guess if the mud flooders would to focus on one thing, like with that, like let's figure out the time, and then take in the considering the Dark Ages,
Mm.
can we focus on that and learn about that? Because I remember them talking about the people pooping out of windows
Mm.
in
Yeah,
London, and that's when they invented stilts,
yeah,
right? And why would they do that? You
yeah.
know? Because they didn't. Because there was a reset, right? There was a catastrophic event, right?
I think that might have been the flood, Johnny. I don't think the flood happened as long ago as these elites are letting on.
But which flood though?
Noah's
Major
flood. Yeah,
Noah's flood. You
yeah.
could be
I think,
right.
and there's still proof today that there's mud, there's flood runoff in America,
You
right?
know,
So,
someone made a joke today. It was like something funny. He's like, um, why March 4th is a holiday or something, and it was like, oh, it's because Noah's Ark or God was like March 4th or something. I don't know. I was like, that's. I was like, okay, whatever. That's kind of funny.
I like May the 4th.
Yeah, I like warm weather better than cold.
Yep.
So what were we talking about? Oh yeah, so I think that we should. I mean, the mud flooders are cool because they could take all those group of guys that like really dark and like mud colored stuff, and then like put them in the dark ages. They match up. Like, so focus on that. You guys research the dark ages. We'll try to figure out something else. I don't know.
That works.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do what I'm doing. That's all.
No, I know. I'm just joking around. Sorry. So you want to read some of this?
I'll read a little bit of it.
Okay.
So it says Gog and Gay Gog. Gog and Magog on Mappa Mundi and early printed world maps orientalizing ethnography in the apocalyptic tradition. Okay, it's a book by Andrew Go, augmented with referenced maps and references to relevant monographs. So yeah, he does go through all the maps and he points out where,
good stuff like we did.
Yeah, where Gog and Magog are on the old maps and how they're enclosed up north above China. This map's upside down. They love to do that to you. But this is China and it's north. And there's a big wall here that I guess Alexander the Great helped build to keep them enclosed in. The Red Jews, the Magogs, right?
Hey, it's not there. It's not that map that's upside down. It's our map now that's upside down.
Maybe. There you go. Australians really are at the top of the world, aren't they?
Exactly. So what was your point here though?
So belief in the fast approaching end of this world and in the last judgment, a core component of pre-modern European religion and culture, had a profound influence on Mappa Mundi and early printed maps. As with many abstract concepts, medieval and early modern Christians gave this set of ideas concrete form in numerous ways. One of the most revealing and useful concretizations of apocalyptic angst was the legend of the destroyers of Gog and Magog. This medieval tale was based on the New Testament's distortion of Gog from the land of Magog, Ezekiel 38 and 39, and in Revelation 20, verse 7 and 8, as Gog and Magog. The peoples thus found their way beyond ecclesiastical circles via popular legends and stories, especially the Alexander cycle. Far from representing only physical geography and a largely legendary ethnology, Mappa Mundi charted the history of salvation and the temporal relations of the past, present, and future via depictions of apocalyptic figures, many of them alien destroyers. The Alexander legend of later antiquity, based broadly on Josephus's recounting, tells Alexander, marching eastward, came upon a wild peoples, the Feras Gentes, or unclean peoples, the Immundus Gentes, who ate human flesh and had other equally vile customs. To keep them from destroying the rest of the world, Alexander drove them between two mountains and then asked God to push the two mountains together and imprison them. This story found its way not only into later versions of the Alexander legend, but also in the Quran and the influential Greek revelations of the pseudo-Methodist. Okay, now remember a few days ago I made a video pointing out that he actually had Satan on his flag, and he was marching forth with Satan on his flag, and he had Satan with him in the painting. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So was Alexander working for God? Well, he was probably working for the God of this world, right? Which is Lucifer. So, anyway.
So wait, let's go over that part one more time. So they were saying something about trying to trap in Magog in between mountains.
Yeah, that's right. And they did that with the wall.
Okay, it's just a metaphor.
I think so.
Okay.
This story found its way not only into later versions of the Alexander legend, but also into the Quran and influential, okay, I read that, which date from the end of the 7th century. So this happened long before the 7th century, right? This goes way back. The apocalypse of pseudo-Methodist.
The year
is a
600.
7th century apocalypse that shaped the eschatological imagination of Christendom throughout the Middle Ages. Apocalypse that shaped the imagination of Christendom throughout the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages, we don't really know what happened through the Middle Ages. We try to piece together here and there,
What?
reading.
So I still don't understand freaking time, like history. I'll be honest. I don't know. I mean, I know some. Obviously, AD stands for after the death,
Yeah,
right? Before Christ is
right.
BC, and then you told me that CE is current era. So when is the Middle Ages?
Let's look it up.
See, because what I'm trying to come to this time thing, and I think what might be is that if we're in the year 2000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about the year 600. When you say the 7th century, that's the year 600, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, okay.
So that's, yeah.
The Middle Ages or medieval period lasted from the 5th to the 15th century. It began with the fall of the Western Roman Empire and merged into the Renaissance and the Age of Discovery. The Middle Ages is the middle period of the three traditional divisions of Western history: classical antiquity, the medieval period, and the modern period. All right, so there's early, high, and late Middle Ages.
Okay. So from the 5th century to the 15th century. So from the year 400 to the year 1400.
Wow, that's a long time, man. And
It's a
that's when,
medieval period?
yep, and that's when they were making the globe map. That's when the Inquisition happened. That's when the Crusades all were taking place. That's a lot went down back then, man. It was busy times for the Roman Catholic Church.
Wow. So that's
Black
10
Plague
years?
around the
Or
same time.
10,000. I'm still confused. 100.
So the 5th century would be how many years ago?
15.
Would have been the year 500, yeah. And this is the year 2018, so it was like,
For some reason, my brain's just
it
not.
was like 1800, 1500 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1,500 years ago.
500 years after the death of
That's
Christ.
not that long ago, dude.
No, man. It sure ain't. So something happened after the death of Christ then. So this isn't Noah flood stuff I'm talking about then. It's stuff that happened just after the death of Christ. 2 to 3 to 400 years after.
But see, we had some kind of dark ages in the 1800s. It was from the 16. It might be, I don't know. See what I mean? Like there was something that happened after. So there was probably this whole mud flood, because I'm trying to figure this mud flood shit out too. So it's like this whole thing's not. I don't think this is one event. I mean, it's probably them like just taking over, like destruction. You know, the Phoenix thing, chaos, order out of chaos, or whatever. They come in, they take your shit or stuff, and then they flood you out or whatever they got to do. You know, and
Here we
then
go.
all of I don't know, man.
Here we go. The late Middle Ages was marked by difficulties and calamities, including famine, plague, and war, which significantly diminished the population of Europe between 1347 and 1350.
So there you go, mud flooders. It's the end of the Middle Ages. That's what you're seeing the effects of, and then thereafter, that's what you're seeing. I mean, that's got to be it.
Yep.
And of course, you have hurricanes and floods and
Volcanoes,
all kinds of stuff, man.
Yeah.
You have hurricanes every year in Florida and stuff gets flooded. I mean, obviously, Florida's not a good one for mud flood, but
And
up in the mid, yeah. Go ahead.
let me just tell you how I think I see it. Okay, so 1347 was 300 years after Jesus was crucified on the cross by the Pharisees and the Jews under Caesar, right? Who is also a very important, person nowadays.
So when is this again?
This was 200 to 300 years after the death of Christ, after they crucified Jesus. And so
What was the year?
1340s to what? What did it say up top? To the
So
late
we're
century.
so, but AD would start at 0, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's when. Yes, that's when. That's right. Jesus was
So
crucified at 33, and they based the Gregorian calendar. So they're telling us that Jesus died 2,000 years ago, right? 2018 years ago, Jesus Christ died. And in 1347, that's 1347 years after Jesus died, this whole mess happened.
uh-huh.
What if it didn't happen 2018 years ago? What if it happened 3,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago? Right? What if it happened 1,000 years ago? That's what I'm trying to understand. Can we add 1,000 years? Can we take 1,000 years? And does
That's
this make
it.
sense?
That's it. You just said it. You just said it. It's only been. It's only been. Oh man.
Yeah, brain freeze.
This is where the indoctrination, like the monarchy mind control
Yeah,
kicks in.
exactly, exactly. Does not compute.
Okay, so you said it, dude. It's only been 1,000. That's it. It's not the year 2018. It's the year
Right,
1018.
exactly.
Yeah.
And they covered it up when they made the Gregorian calendar. They put the globe out there in the Middle Ages. A
Yeah.
lot of shit went down in the middle. A lot of Christians were killed in the Middle Ages.
Welcome to the year 1020. Welcome
Imagine
to
where we're going to be in 2018, Johnny. We're going to have
probably like,
flying cars, and we're going to be up
oh
living on
man.
Mars.
Nah, man, it's not gonna last that long, dude, because we're still in Revelations right now.
We're going to have these things we can communicate with that are built right into our heads. It's going to be
I don't
awesome.
no, I don't think it's gonna last that long, dude. I think
I
we're in the book. I think we're still in the book, and this is the end. This is the end. My only friend.
No, can't be.
The end.
Don't you think if it was the end, these elites would tell us, man?
Oh man. This place is just a place, that you're not. I don't think your body, or I think this is all just a setup, to test you. Because if you're going to get lifted, or you're going to not get lifted, to the next dimension or whatever, you know.
Yeah. So one of the
I mean,
things,
go ahead.
hang on, one of the things they relate. Okay, that I mentioned the Red Jews. The reason why there's two stories here, Gog and Magog and the Red Jews, is because people were telling the story. Some people were telling it as the Red Jews, and some people knew it as Gog and Magog, but they're two in the same thing. Okay, so the Red Jews are Gog and Magog. Okay, now you think of somebody, a race of people that's red, Johnny, and tell me what you come up with. The only one I come up with is Native Americans. They're the
Yeah.
only real, red colored. Besides Chinese come close, the northern China,
Well, I mean, the
Siberia,
first
Russia.
thing the first thing an American would think is the Washington Redskins. Like, they try to ban that name, but they still have that
Yep.
name.
And yeah, and it answers the question to me: why would these Eskimos travel all the way up north to live up there when there's so much greener grass down here and so much more? What would cause a people to do that? And the only thing I can think of is to be being exiled and having to start over, having to learn fresh, right?
Genius.
That explains it.
You're freaking
Who
genius,
the hell
dude.
else would live up there, man? Hey, I got a great idea, kids. Let's pack our bags and go live at the North Pole. It's going to be wonderful, right?
Dude, you just nailed it, dude. So anyone out there that wants to know about all this Tartaria and mud flood stuff, this is the show where you're gonna find out the truth. And the truth is these people were exiled, and we got proof that they went up there to how do you say it? Breton, Cape Breton,
Breton, yep.
7 cities,
Yep.
and that's all you need to know. It says Tartarians right there in the thing, and I mean, so it's about time that we kind of all put all the pieces together, because when you're a kid, like, they don't really explain
Yeah.
it right to you. I don't think, anyway.
Right. So yeah, the whole Cape Breton thing's interesting. So we all know John Cabot came over here with Christopher Columbus soon after, whatever. They had this thing going with the elites over in England and the Roman Catholic Church, right? And they went on this discovery exploration. So John Cabot took a map that Christopher Columbus had and that already had mapped out Cape Breton Island and the seven cities. It was known then as an ancient island, okay? These cities were already in John Cabot's days considered ancient. So he went out to try to find these ancient cities, but when he
But
landed,
they were there.
when he landed, he found the Micmac Indians. Okay, now the Micmac Indians are said to be Tartarian or
Uh-huh.
or Magogian, Red Jews, etc. Right?
Uh-huh.
Tartar, somebody from England or somebody from Tartar or China came over in a big boat. The natives here called him Glooscap. He was allegedly a giant that was in a boat the size of an island. Came over, he taught them how to traditionally dress, he taught them all kinds of different things, and then he told them that the Europeans were coming and that their land would no longer be theirs. And that's what
Wow.
happened. The Europeans came over with their Ball Earth map. They came over with John Cabot, Christopher Columbus. They slaughtered all of the Tartarian Micmacs. Why? Why did they come over here and have to take the children and totally wipe their minds with abuse and sexual abuse?
Oh my
Why?
God.
Why? Other than to promote the Roman Catholic Church's story of science, evolution,
But
Big
why am
Bang.
I confused about, so they had to kill Gog and Magog, but so they're bad, but then
They,
they're good.
they say that they had to kill Gog and Magog because they were cannibals and they ate each other.
Yes. It even
And they,
says that in the Bible.
yeah, and that's what the Jews did too. They were sacrificing their babies and eating them and eating each other, and
So
that's what
why
the
do we
Red Jews
think
were
that
over.
why do we think the Indians and the Eskimos are good people?
I think
Why
well,
are
okay,
they
can you
I'm
forever
confused.
blame okay, can you forever blame I don't know. So they were exiled. Now this is just a theory. I'm not even saying I'm right. But you raised a
Uh,
good question. You raised a good question. So if I'm exiled and generation after generation after generation is brought up and my peoples no longer practice that, can we still consider them? But I don't know. I know Rome likes to make everybody look evil that doesn't agree with them. They call them savages. They call them barbarians. They call them you know whatever.
I got you, but I'm still a little
Yeah.
thrown off because of this and because of the Bible saying that they were cannibals too.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of upsets me a little bit,
Yeah.
but I think I'm gonna go with some giants ate people and some didn't.
Maybe there's the story of the friendly giant. I mean,
Yeah, there is a friendly. He's the one that helped go to tell all the Indians, like, yo, the Europeans are coming. The Europeans are coming.
there you go. There you go.
But so, yeah, I mean, this is making a lot of sense now. But then they push this bullshit so hard. Like now they got all these people online calling us idiots because we don't want to think we're on a spinning fucking ball.
That's
Like,
the Ball Earth movement, man. That's all that is. It's just the Ball Earth movement. Not everybody in the world's like that. I can guarantee you could walk outside your door right now, Johnny. You could tell all kinds of people you're a flat earther or whatever. You could put yourself inside of any box, and they ain't gonna freak out on you like they do out
dude, I'm
on.
I'm a I'm a no spacer.
There you go. Nobody's gonna freak out on you out there, man. In the real world, you know why? Because they're all cowards, man. They can't. The only place that you'll find this hate is here on the internet. That's it. It's because they're all
Yeah.
they're all chickens. They're all faceless. They're all nameless.
No, you're right. And I mean, there's a lot. I have a lot to say about all that, but I think we should go back to Gog and Magog because I'm kind of like putting all the pieces together in my head, and I want to stay on subject because I got a fucking day and a half to talk about what's been going on in the last couple days.
You'll get shunned before you get made fun of in real life. Like, you know what I mean? Your friends will shun you before they make fun of you. People out on the street will just not talk to you before they, break down, start hollering pedo at you, right?
Well, there's no reason to even get into
No.
like the deep science stuff. I'll make punches here and there, but I don't.
You know what? The common person doesn't even like science, man. They
No, I
understand a
know.
little bit of it, but they're not into it.
No, I know. And but you know what? These shields have succeeded, and maybe this is why Globebuster shows like their mission is completed, man. Like they made sure that anyone talking about the subject is going to be look like an idiot
That's right.
because that was the plan. It was like because I think Bob nailed it a long time. Our Bob a long time ago. He said, "Man, it started blowing up in forums, so
Yeah.
they had to fucking." That's the only thing that makes sense to me is like it because I didn't because everyone that came out was a show, and the people that weren't shills aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
So they succeeded in their mission. So now if I bring it up, like, because I've had people go like, "Are you a flat earther?" And I'm like, "I don't believe in believing," and they're like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, if I can see that it's a flower, it's a fucking flower.
That's right.
I don't need to, it's obvious that there's a creator and all this stuff. It's obvious that you're an amazing person and probably like special powers, but that's a whole nother show, man. Let's get back on my Magog shit. Sorry, I cursed again. Darn it.
Kids around. It's all right. Here we are.
Give you a short history of the island, describe why its location made the island so valuable, and introduce the theory that the best explanation of the island's mysterious early history may be found in the voyages of the 15th century ocean-going fleets of China. The theory outlined in the book shown here suggests that in the 15th century or before, the Chinese sailed to the east coast of Canada, settled there on an island that came to be known in Europe as the Island of Seven Cities, and left a sizable imprint both on the land and on the indigenous people of the region, the Mi'kmaq, who still live in this area.
So he's saying that the Inuit or the natives were already there when the Chinese showed up. Right?
Oh,
That's what he's saying. When the Tartars showed up,
there was already but there was but it was a nice city. Don't all right. Let it play because it shows like a whole city, doesn't it?
The slide presentation will outline that theory, point out its many different elements, and try to address some of the questions raised. This is a map of the world's oceans. The story of this discovery begins in China. We know that by the 15th century, the Chinese were sailing throughout the Indian Ocean. It is without question that they'd reached the east coast of Africa. And once a ship reached the southern tip of Africa, the currents in the Atlantic would have done the rest. A ship in these waters, simply because of the way the oceans flow and by doing very little actual sailing, will end up here, on a small island called Cape Breton Island. Off the eastern coast of Cape Breton, the powerful Gulf Stream current turns out to the open ocean. It joins a northern current flowing in the opposite direction. The current becomes colder and it slows down. The island is located at this crucial juncture in world shipping. At one time, because of its position at the opening of the Gulf of St. Lawrence, the island was considered the gateway to the interior of the continent. And because of these currents off its coast, these waters were once thick with fish. Until a few years ago, it had the largest edible fish population in the world. The island is unusually rich in natural resources, including minerals. Cape Breton has the best exposed coal seam along the Atlantic seaboard, and in the early centuries of European discovery, the island supplied luxury furs and built ships for the French court. From its very earliest history, this island was considered extremely valuable. Europeans knew about Cape Breton Island even before John Cabot discovered it in 1497. In the early years of the Age of Discovery, it was known as the Island of Seven Cities. This island of Age of Discovery, Cabot discovered it in 1497. In the early years of the Age of Discovery,
so towards the end of the Middle Ages, is when he came over. He was coming to look for these cities, but he didn't find them. He ended up on Cape Daphne and Cape Breton. No, he ended up in Bonavista, Newfoundland, eventually. So it's interesting.
It was known as the Island of Seven Cities. This Island of Seven Cities was believed to have been an island in the northern Atlantic that had great cities, a sophisticated populace, They spoke several languages. They had libraries. They mined gold.
Several languages, mined gold, very sophisticated, major cities.
Mm-hmm. Major cities?
Yeah.
So there was another civilization already here.
Yeah. I've been looking for this for a long time, for some kind of geological evidence that there was a civilization in North America before the Europeans came over, before the Vikings. And this is
Yeah.
it. This nails it. There's another place in Cape Breton Island called Kelly's Mountain where there's actually a stone structure built. So,
Man, they're not telling us all kinds of stuff. And there could be giants because you were saying that a giant came on a boat
right.
size of an island or something.
Exactly. So when the Europeans or Alexander the Great was chasing the Tartars out of Europe and out of China and all that, they were fleeing over here and finding the indigenous people. That makes more sense.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
this is crazy.
This is crazy, man.
We know that Cape Breton was this famous island of 7 cities because both Christopher Columbus and John Cabot left records to that effect. Let me explain. In the early years of European discovery, the island of Cape Breton was mapped with a longer island to the north and smaller islands to the south, like this 1692 Coronelli map or this 1604 map by Marc Lescarbot. This is a section of the Christopher Columbus map from about 1490, drawn before Europeans had surveyed the island. Here, correctly positioned in the unknown northern Atlantic, was this: Columbus's rendering of the mysterious island of 7 cities.
That's Columbus's reference to it. Rendering.
Drawn well before his visit to the New World, it was an island with the same configuration, the same waterways, the same proportion, the same scale of parts, and the same orientation as Cape Breton Island. To be clear, before discovery of the New World, there was a map of Cape Breton Island, surveyed and drawn, circulating in Europe, a map that Columbus had copied from. Someone, some large expedition, had mapped Cape Breton Island before the European Age of Discovery, before Europeans had visited this coast. Then it was known as the Island of 7 Cities. This Island of 7 Cities that Columbus drew had a long legend attached to it. During the 15th century, in the early years of European discovery, mariners lost in the Atlantic reported finding it. Adventurers went looking for it, and both the Portuguese and the English kings awarded contracts for its discovery. This document is from the Portuguese archives, and an explorer was given the contract to discover the Island of 7 Cities by order of the king. This in 1486. And there are several of these royal contracts, all in the years before Columbus. In 1497, John Cabot claimed he discovered the Island of 7 Cities. It was Cape Breton Island. You see, in the early years of the European discovery of the Americas, a newly found place of importance in the Americas wasn't given a latitude reference, a number like it is now. It was given a location, a place in Western Europe that had the same angle with the stars, the same position on the globe, the same line of latitude. When John Cabot returned from his voyage to the New World in 1497, he reported very specifically that the southernmost part of the Island of 7 Cities was west of the Bordeaux River. That is Cape Breton Island, within 3 kilometers.
Yep.
Even by present-day standards, Cabot's directions would be considered exact.
And it's funny how close to home this hits, man. Like, I lived there, you know, and it's crazy. So
they still get good fish in there and stuff, or no?
Oh yeah, man.
Well, yeah, because that's
good.
where it all goes.
They say it isn't, but you could throw a line and catch a fish, no problem. You know, there's always mackerel running down there. You know.
So, is there evidence of like old stuff?
Yeah, there is. He gets into it.
This has been a criticism of the theory of early Chinese settlement here on the east coast of Canada, that the Island of 7 Cities was nothing more than a 15th century fantasy. It was not. It was real. Something of importance was here. Columbus had a map of the island before Europeans had surveyed and drawn it. European mariners searched for it, and John Cabot believed he had discovered it.
That's right. And so we can believe Christopher Columbus on his venture to the New World, but you can't believe his maps that he brought with him that he was using to navigate around this world. To, you know, you got to throw that. See, the media was all over this guy, eh? Oh, you're full of it. It was an old gravel pit, da 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 da. But fact of the matter is, it's right in front of you. It was on the maps. There was royal decrees out to find this island of 7 cities. John Cabot and Christopher Columbus both knew about it. Right? People got lost. People got lost and found it, wrote about it. So it's another one of them. Yeah, you can't believe what this guy says, but you know.
The second part of this 3-part series on the island of 7 cities will describe a site of stone ruins in Cape Breton Island, a site that appears to have the remains of a long-forgotten settlement. It will describe the various elements of the site and explain why the ruins appear so unusual.
Yeah.
Throughout the history of Cape Breton Island, I noticed that one tiny piece of land, a small mountaintop, appeared important very early and then all but disappeared from the records. It's the point where the coast turns north.
Right here.
That place is now wilderness, forgotten land, steeply sloped with ocean on 3 sides. It's difficult to find and difficult to reach. Years ago, during a wilderness hike in the area, I found an old road. I sensed that this was not simply a forgotten farmer's path. It appeared that in the distant past, it had been well made, consistently wide, hard-surfaced, and maintained. This seemed to have been a project, a major undertaking, some grand scheme by some government at some time. I thought it was French. In the early 18th century, the French had built the fortress city of Louisbourg down the coast. But I could find no report of anything ever having been built here. No history, nothing. In all the records, observations, maps, surveys. Why a road here? In many areas, the road is discernible, but it's in near ruins. Along many sections of the road, there are the remains of stone walls that still line both sides. I had only seen the lower part of the road that day, but I knew it went up. I also knew that traces of early history are often more visible from the air than on the ground. So I began studying aerial photographs taken as early as the 1930s, in different years and from different seasons. Now this brings us to one of the primary criticisms of this theory, that this mysterious road I found was actually a modern construction, built in a single day in 1952 by a local volunteer fire brigade, fighting a forest fire on the mountainside, and then rebuilt by a gravel company in the 1990s, a company that had hoped to turn the mountain into a gravel pit to supply high-grade crushed stone to road builders. However, the road was here long before either of these elements. This is an aerial photograph taken in 1931, well before either the fire brigade or the gravel company. And it clearly shows a road up the side of the mountain. This criticism of the theory that the road is a modern construction doesn't stand up to closer investigation. Now, back to the site.
So he just debunked the mainstream's theory completely.
When I started studying these aerial photographs of the top of the mountain, I thought I would find the outline of something French that had escaped history and been forgotten. That's not what I found. I found ruins that are both specific and unusual. I'll take you through some of the most important elements of the site. The first, most obvious element of this site is the enclosure. It's just below the summit. To the northwest along its lower edge, it runs along a small river. The area it surrounds measures about 1 kilometer along the long axis. Now, an additional note on Chinese architecture. The Chinese traditionally build walls using stone only as a base. On top of this wide, low stone base, as wide.
That's how they built the Great Wall too, was with the stone and the pounding of the sand.
As the wall was to be tall, the main part of the wall was built using hardened earth, tamponed and pressed down to the density of concrete. Over time, without maintenance, the wall dissolves, leaving only the wide stone base following the topography of the site. What you see in the aerial photograph of the site is a wide ribbon of stone that goes up and down the hillside, just below the summit, follows along the lower river, all over hilly, rough terrain, approximately 3 kilometers of wall, unrecorded in European history. And there are other walls on the site, smaller but no less significant. These walls have been a source of criticism of the theory. Critics have suggested that these walls are actually fire breaks, built by the same volunteer fire brigade that was said to have built the road.
No way.
This fire brigade may have plowed over sections of these walls, allowing them to show so clearly in several of the aerial photographs, but volunteer firefighters didn't build this ribbon of stone to help stop a raging fire. Moreover, there appears to be the remains of a double wall on the site. The Chinese sometimes built two parallel walls around a settlement, as seen on this Chinese illustration of a town, and often the entrances were round. Here in this aerial photograph from 1953 appears to be the remains of a second wall parallel to the outer wall, with a distinct circular entrance. This unusual form suggests, very specifically, a Chinese construction.
Wow.
The most important element of the site is on the eastern side of the enclosure, a rectangular clearing cut into the hillside, approximately 100 meters wide and 400 meters long, facing the open Atlantic. Here on the top of a mountain, in the midst of a wilderness of thick spruce forest, are the remains of what appears to have been a small town. The view is even more telling from the lower level looking up towards the summit. At first, the terrain looks natural, but a pathway and a system of terraces seem to have been built into the hillside. Rectangular stone platforms have been constructed on these terraces. Now, a short footnote on Chinese architecture, because the architecture of China is a bit different from the way we build in the West. That's why the site was so baffling at first. Chinese buildings are built primarily of wood, on top of simple, low, rectangular stone platforms. When the wooden structures deteriorate over time, all that's left are the stone bases. And that's what we see on the site, in various sizes and locations, often alone, but sometimes organized around small open courtyards that can be seen more clearly in photographs taken above the site.
There you go.
These are regular, rectangular stone platforms built into the hillside. Critics claim that these platforms were actually drilling platforms built recently by the gravel company. But that's not possible. The gravel company did no work on this cleared site. All their work was farther inland on a large plateau south of this clearing. After the road leaves the town walls on top of this wilderness mountain, well distant from and not related to the shoreline, the road splits into areas of cleared rectangular fields cut into the forest. It's now meadowland, but the fields have the shape, the size, and the look of farmland. Again, no one ever lived here. There are no records of early farms, and no maps of any early European settlement here. To help locate these various elements on the site, we have the farmland, the wall with the town built well within its perimeter, again, typical of Chinese towns, and the road, both leading up to the town and branching out on the far side of the wall. In many, many ways, this is a typical Chinese hillside settlement.
Now it gets real good.
Are we going to part 3?
Part of the
Yeah.
three-part series on the island of 7 cities.
Yeah, this is the one that's crazy.
Okay, right.
All right, are you ready?
Here,
Sorry for the long wait, but you are about to
when it
witness
was known as the
the
island.
proof that you need
The
to
people
advance.
to this region are called the Mi'kmaq. They still live in the region.
So that's an old painting of a Mi'kmaq Indian in Cape Breton. Okay. Notice there's a cross there already. So they're already indoctrinated by the Roman Catholic Church.
This is a late 19th century painting of a young Mi'kmaq woman. The Mi'kmaq were a nation that was referred to by the first European settlers in ways unlike any other indigenous people in the New World. One of the most telling remarks regarding the Mi'kmaq and how they were perceived by early European visitors was made in the middle of the 18th century by a Catholic missionary who lived among them, Pierre Millard. In 1758, Millard wrote a book about the Mi'kmaq of Cape Breton, in which he asked the question, where does this remarkable people come from? And he wrote, possibly some light might be got into it by discovering whether there was any affinity or not between their language, the Mi'kmaq language, and that of the Orientalists, as the Chinese or Tartars.
Now, 5 minutes before he said this, I had mentioned to someone, hey, these probably are Tartarians. And then, boom, right? So, just confirmed what I was thinking. It makes a lot of sense.
So the guy underlined Chinese or Tartars?
Yeah. That these
That's
people,
pretty funny.
if you actually try to see if there's any affinity between their language and that of the Chinese or Tartars, two and the same, okay?
The Chinese or Tartars, he wrote. This
Chinese
is an
or
early 20th
Tartars.
century photograph of a Mi'kmaq couple. In these photographs showing the traditional Mi'kmaq clothing, we can see clear similarities between the Mi'kmaq and the Chinese. The short
or Tartars.
jacket,
They don't look like Asian, really.
worn over a long skirt, decorated with multiple horizontal lines of various embroidered designs. The Mi'kmaq clothing on the left is almost identical to that worn by women in China, as shown on the right. And these curious hats worn by the Mi'kmaq women are worn only by the Mi'kmaq women. These hats were unique in the New World. The hat on the left is traditional Mi'kmaq, the hat on the right is Chinese. We find the same parallels in the many decorative patterns used by the Mi'kmaq, in their crafts and on their clothing. This is the traditional Mi'kmaq design of their 8-pointed star. The Chinese use an identical decorative pattern. For many reasons, the Mi'kmaq were considered unique in the New World. It was reported by early visitors that they had their own written language, the only native nation that did. They were reading and writing, even the children, in their own script when Europeans arrived. This is a copy of that script seen through European eyes, dated 1737. It had
More
been
Indian.
changed by Christian missionaries, but certain symbols remained, many all but identical to Chinese characters.
All but identical.
In the mid-19th century,
Well,
this man, Simon Tertius Rand,
So their
this
language.
kind of makes sense with the Tartar, with the rocks or whatever we saw, the stone.
Man.
You know
So
what I mean?
yeah, this is blowing my mind again. It's like the third time I've seen this, and I'm still thinking of stuff.
a Nova Scotian Baptist minister and an internationally respected scholar of languages who could read, write, and speak a dozen or so, questioned if the Mi'kmaq had some origin in the Chinese. He said this about Mi'kmaq writing, using for this purpose not letters but characters, after the manner of the Chinese. Now, it was not only missionaries and language scholars who thought of Cape Breton as a land of the Chinese. After John Cabot claimed in 1497 that Cape Breton was the famous island of 7 cities, unusual reports began to appear. This is the title page from a 16th century book of navigation written by Jean Alphonse, Jacques Cartier's navigator. In his sailing directions for the Atlantic coast of Canada, published in 1559, he wrote that, starting at the mouth of the St. Lawrence River, it was about 400 leagues to a place called Tartary, a term meaning the place of the Tartars or the Chinese. Tartar was synonymous with Chinese. These were sailing directions to Cape Breton.
So there, Tartar was synonymous with Chinese. Chinese, aka Tartars, back then.
Yeah, because before that, it was all kinds of different kind of Tartars before that. Remember, we looked at the maps, and China didn't really pop around until the Tartars started to die out. And then that's when China became bigger, and there was less and less, and that was the Mongols and Genghis Khan and all that.
Cape Breton Island, the land of the Chinese. Jean Alphonse, Pierre Millard, Silas Tertius Rand, a navigator, a Christian missionary, and a language scholar, each from a different period in history, each in his own way.
All saying that these native Indians were Tartarians.
Exactly.
So the Tartarians came over and conquered North America before Europe ever even thought about it.
Yeah, but I'm still confused as when they got there was already a civilization. Well, no. They were talking about Christopher Columbus and Cabot, that there was already a civilization, and that was the Tartars.
Right.
Yeah, because I don't know why I was thinking the Tartars came and there was already a civilization.
No.
Okay.
John Cabot came over and discovered the Micmacs.
That's right, and then slaughtered them all.
Right. Indoctrinated all their children,
All pointing in the direction of China, all suggesting that this small region of Cape Breton, this island in the Atlantic, once referred to as the Island of 7 Cities, had some connection with China and the Chinese. It seems unfathomable, but the Mi'kmaq oral history tells of an ancient visitor, a wise teacher who once lived among the Mi'kmaq, a teacher who had come to them by the ocean on a boat the size of a floating island.
Floating island.
And then left just before the coming of the Europeans. He sailed back to his home on the other side of the world. This man, who the Mi'kmaq still called Glooskap, had been a wise teacher, and we know that the Chinese ambassadors who accompanied the large fleets would have had a rigorous education. They would have been able to recite the writings of the great Chinese thinkers from memory. Glooskap arrived on a ship the size of an island, and we know that many of the ships in the Chinese fleet were over 400 feet long. They were longer by hundreds of feet than anything being built in Europe. And Glooskap left when he realized Europeans were beginning to arrive. The Mi'kmaq claimed that Glooskap told them their land would no longer be their own. According to the Mi'kmaq, Glooskap then sailed to the other side of the world. The other side of the world, opposite Cape Breton Island, is China. This question of Glooskap's origin is one of the most important in the history of the European Age of Discovery. Who visited here? What wise teacher before the coming of Europeans? To review the elements from which this theory has evolved, those pieces of evidence suggest that someone was here before Europeans started colonizing. A site of mysterious ruins located near the top of a mountain with a road leading up to it, lined by stone walls, a road that can be seen on aerial photographs taken before any modern construction in the area. The remains of a linear stone element around the site, like a river of stone in parts, that suggest...
All right. So, yeah. All them maps I found of Tartaria being outlined around over here in North America, now that explains it. There was cities over here like you wouldn't believe. And they were probably Chinese, Tartarian looking cities.
Yeah.
So
they were, like you said in the beginning of the show, they were exiled.
Yep.
So they came here.
But who was the giant that came over and taught? That's what I'm wondering. Glooskap. Who was that? Where did he come from? And why did he tell them the Europeans were coming?
Well, there was obviously more giants than just Gog. I mean, and then
where are they now? Funny, he didn't. It's funny Glooskap didn't come over and eat all the natives. He taught them and was nice and kind and peaceful, loving. Warned them about the white man coming over to take their land.
Yeah. Wow. Huh.
The ship was the size of an island. And it's interesting, the Chinese had ships that were 400 feet long, hundreds of feet longer than any European ship of the day. But yet it was the European ships that came over and conquered. Why didn't the Chinese, you would think? Maybe they already did.
I wonder if we should start researching Chinese history.
I bet you they came over here to wipe out the Tartars. I bet you they came over here to finish up the job. And I bet you this giant that came over was a descendant of Gog or whatever. And he came over to warn them and teach them and prepare them how to rough it and live off the land, right? How to do it. You know, I don't know. I'm just guessing, right? I'm speculating.
You're absolutely right, dude. You nailed it. Because not only that, then they came and they killed all the rest of them too.
Did they?
And then, yeah, the ones in America. That's our history, man.
Yeah, it says in the Bible they're coming back. So,
but I just figured out the whole South America thing. Because Spain and France were fighting for this land before on the maps, and so that's why.
And the Ball Earth map came out at the exact same time in the Middle Ages. I think we got it.
There's not very many Indians left and Eskimos. There's some though.
And who would go up north to live up there, really? You know.
And you know what's tragic is the ones that come here. I hate to be like this, but like I've met people that were not necessarily like Native Indians or whatever, but there's some like Eskimos that like they don't know that they're Tartarians. You know what I mean? Like they don't know who they are or how special they are because like what just hit me, it's like, dang, I know this girl was supposedly an Eskimo and then she doesn't know she's Tartarian. You know?
No. From the North Pole.
Yeah.
Right? From Baffin Island. I'm an Eskimo. I'm an Inuit. Right?
Dude, you're from there too.
Almost.
I'm
1/3.
You're not that far from Dan Pratt. You could go drive down and hang out with Dan Pratt.
I'm 1/3 Micmac, so I mean, this just kind of hits close.
Oh, you are. That's right. Dang, you're Tartar. Oh man, Bryce Tartar. Didn't mean to call you that, dude.
Ain't that something? Yeah. And it's from where I live, too. I'm from down there, yeah. My father was half native, so that makes me 1/3, according to the government.
Yeah, I didn't mean to say it like that. I've never said that. I don't know why that came out.
I'm Tartarian, man. You hate me now?
No, I love that about you, dude.
I'm actually kind of kind. I try to be loving, you know. I try to teach. I mean, I don't.
That's why you're so like powerful, you know.
I
It's
mean,
like
there's others out there that call me nasty and mean, and you know, I'm sure they would say I hate people too if they could.
Oh man, this is an awesome show. Let's keep it going. So look, this video's not done yet.
It's got a few minutes left.
Just the remains of a wall, specifically an earth wall with a stone base. A large rectangular cleared open space the size of a small town, dotted with the remains of what appear to have been flat rectangular stone platforms, just the way the Chinese would have built. Beyond is the cleared land on the plateau. It has no history in early settlement, no Europeans ever built here. Yet there are the remains of large adjoining plots of what appear to have been farmland. And the Mi'kmaq, their clothing, the hats, the patterns on their clothing, in their craft work, and their written language that was consistently
That star kind of resembles the Jewish star too,
compared to Chinese by early scholars of the Mi'kmaq language. And it was believed to be the island of 7 cities, drawn by Columbus before his visit to the New World, copied from what source we
Identical.
have. The island was known of and searched for by European kings. It was discovered by John Cabot in 1497. And in the early centuries of European settlement, the island was still referred to as Tartary, the home of the Tartars, a term used in Europe to describe the Chinese.
So they did conquer.
Oh,
they did conquer the world, and they could have built all these wonderful buildings over here, and maybe Rome did come over and take them all. Maybe.
So they didn't even call themselves Tartarians. That's just what the Europeans called them.
Right.
And that's why it's linked to hell. Tartarus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in the Bible it says that Gog was cannibals and shit.
That's where this comes into play. This book I found. Right? So around 700 CE, Common Era. Okay, that would be AD. 700 AD, 700 years after the death. This latter text was translated into Latin by the monk Peter in Merovingian Gaul and very widely disseminated in the West. Okay, widely disseminated. It was passed around. Okay, this was a time when documents or scrolls or texts were held like treasures. Okay, people are gonna try to tell us, oh, it's nothing, it don't mean nothing, but no. This text was actually widely passed around by the elites. Okay. In the West, where it became a standard of Christian apocalypticism. In this version, the unclean peoples, originally thought to have been enclosed by Alexander, were identified with Gog and Magog, the apocalyptic destroyers of Ezekiel 38 and 39, Revelation 20, verse 8. The Pseudo-Mathonian revelations enjoyed an uninterrupted popularity, so it carried on without anybody disputing it or anything. They were printed in numerous editions during the 15th and 16th century. Okay, we already covered that. So I'll move on. Not only did versions of these canonical texts continue to circulate until well past the Reformation, the stories they contained seeped into all manner of medieval, exegetical, and literary works. Gog and Magog became a topos of salvation history of considerable historical interest is the frequency with which Gog and Magog appeared on early world maps. Their survival on world maps well beyond the point at which the dominant cultural and intellectual discourses had cast strong doubts on their existence is also worth exploring. We got a lot of people today that are trying to cast strong doubts on the existence of the Tartars.
So is that them depicting Gog and Magog as two people?
Yes.
So why do they do that? But in the Bible it says the land of Magog. Maybe Magog is his dad or something.
Let's just keep reading. I think
Okay.
it explains that later on.
Okay.
We might not even get to that,
Okay.
but I can't tell you
Sorry.
that right now. I don't know. I don't have the answer, so I'm not scared to admit that. Right?
My bad.
I don't mind admitting that. I don't have the answer for that one. Important sources for traditional cartography are to be found in literary, exegetical, and theological texts. So we're talking about maps and texts here. And in many other contexts, out of these grew map makers' depictions of the legendary peoples Gog and Magog. In the Bible, in Ezekiel, it talks about Gog and Magog being two separate beings, but in Revelations, it talks about the land of Magog, that Gog. So maybe there's two different. Maybe there used to
it's
be.
probably his dad, and it's the land of Magog.
Maybe. Yeah.
And that's why there's a bunch of giants up there and stuff, and they probably just said that they ate people. I mean, our leaders today eat people.
See, and that's how we know we're onto something, because we're kind of feeling around in the dark here, right? And we're asking questions that we don't have answers to, and we're going to find the answers to those questions in this text. I've seen them. I just can't, get them off the top of my head, because there's so much here, right? All right. So thus, when Western identity from its earliest beginnings rests on this and other such views concerning who was out there and who was not like us, tradition, especially of the hallowed biblical and quasi-biblical sort, defines both form and content for the Middle Ages and for the early modern centuries. By the 12th century, Western Christians had by and large come to believe a number of things about Gog and Magog. They were the same. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. They were the same as the 10 lost tribes of Israel. They had been enclosed behind an impenetrable wall until the end of time by Alexander, and that they would break out at the time of Antichrists and devastate the world. Okay, so I believe personally that we are in the time of the Antichrist now, because the Roman Catholic Church is in full effect, y'all. Right? We've already been through the however many years of them killing Christians. Right? We've already been through the Rome went out and conquered the world. Okay, Rome owns the new world. I think I've proven that beyond a reasonable doubt here. And here's where it gets even more interesting. It says they're the same as the 10 lost tribes. Then it goes on to say down here, while the world maps often record a variant based on this conflation as Eud clausi in brackets enclosed Jews, many place both these imaginary Jews, okay, funny he says imaginary, and Gog and Magog in the far northern eastern part of Asia. So back in the day, there was a God like exiled the Jews. You must have heard of that story, Johnny, where he kicked the Jews out of Israel and they went all around the world. Right? Then it says down here, late antique and medieval world maps from Jerome's map of the Orient to the Catalan Atlas generally use the term Gog and Magog to refer to the much storied apocalyptic destroyers. Other genres, especially those produced for a more general, particularly vernacular readership, tended after 1200 to refer to the 10 tribes, the Red Jews, etc. The Red Jews. It's connecting dots here, see? Makes a little bit of sense.
They're trying to keep the Jews in by building the wall.
Yeah.
So what is it with the Jews and the related to these people? Like, why am I feeling like they're all baby eaters? Or like,
because we know.
Why am I confused? I'm just confused about who's good and all this stuff again. Like, you know what I mean?
Right? I know. Because, well, we know what the Talmud says. We know what the Jews worship. We know that back in the day they were into that stuff. Right? Just about everybody was into baby sacrifice and sacrificing their babies to Baal and to Moloch and all of that.
But see, today's Jews aren't the same as those Jews, so now I'm even more confused.
Are they? I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I don't practice Judaism, so I don't know if they're the
No,
same.
you're right. I have no clue. Like, I'm just learning. Like, I think, oh
There
man.
was that guy one time I heard on the radio who said they put babies in the burgers at McDonald's,
Yeah, I heard that too.
but you can't give credit to that.
He sounded
Rabbi
convinced though.
Finkelstein or something his name was. I don't know.
He sounded convinced as fuck. How did we both hear the same thing? I was driving somewhere. I think, man, that's crazy. They still say that they find human flesh and meat.
That's what that guy said.
Yeah, but you can find it, I think, if you look it up. I just don't want to look it up.
Nah, me neither. Gog and Magog appeared on Arabian maps as well. From the 10th century, they appear on Al-Idrisi's map of 1154 under the same names. What direct influence Arabic maps had on later Western cartography is hard to tell, but Al-Idrisi's map, made as a metal plate for Roger of Sicily, was famous. Al-Idrisi's map places Gog and Magog in northern China behind a great wall with a tower and a door. At the wall is an inscription translated as belongs to the Kufaya mountain range, which encloses Gog and Magog.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Some
They
crazy
built
stuff.
a wall around them and they didn't get out?
Yeah. They came over here. They came out. They got out, but they came this way.
That's what. Okay, so now there's this movie with these two giants in the middle, and there's people just building a wall around them.
There you go.
And how the fuck do they get out and survive? Like, you're gonna get over the wall eventually. That's why I said this earlier. I'm like, how do these dudes not get out? They put water around the edge. Genius. There you go.
You only need one wall then.
Yeah, then you need one tall ass wall though to go so they can't swim under.
Yeah. Well, they must have built boats. They must have built boats and escaped.
Oh man, this is getting intense, dude. Like, do I root for Mog and Gog and Magog or whatever or not?
I don't know. I'm not saying anything right now.
They eat people, man. I don't know. But they look like kings when they show their pictures.
There's some stories that say they're good, peace-loving people, and then there's stories that say they eat people.
Okay,
right?
so what's the video where the guy's standing at the statues in that one building with Gog and Magog in the building?
Oh, that's
where
in
it's
London. That's in London.
Yeah.
And those
Yes.
statues, ironically enough, were burnt down 3 times, lost 3 times in fires in London. They stole the statues. They stole the statues. Stonehenge was moved to Scotland by giants, by Voldemort, right? After he conquered Castle Grayskull, he moved the stones out into Scotland, Ireland, wherever it is. And
Yeah.
then gave a bunch of people some awards for killing off the giants. I guess. I don't know. Something like that. That's in a nutshell. That's my comical look at it anyway. But that's all in the other video I made. Right. Explains it a little more seriously. I don't know why we always have to be so serious in this anyway. Right? Lost tribes appear in the Middle East. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I got to mute anyway for a minute or a second.
Lost tribes appear in the Middle East. The map's author had not yet identified these peoples with one another. The 2 legends are treated separately as in patriotic literature. So here's Gog and Magog down here in the corner. This is northern China, another upside down map. In the 12th century, a Mapu Mundi that was until recently attributed to Henry of Mainz, now known as the Solly map, number 215, puts Gog and Magog on a peninsula surrounded by mountains and blocked at its south by an end by a wall. So it's got a wall and mountains blocking it in. The Alexander story was the source of this detail. There's Gog and Magog. That looks to be like the mountain, maybe. The mountain range here. And then the wall. A map in 1120, a Ghent manuscript of the Liber Floridus by Lambert de Saint Omar, another Jesuit priest, is labeled Globus Terra and Augustinius Elementa Mundi, number 217. In the northeast corner, surrounded by a semicircular ring of water called Mare Caspium, is an island on which are the words Gog Magog, another reference to the Alexander legend. This seems to fit well with the contemporary view of Gervase of Tilbury in 1150-1220, who wrote in his Otilla Imperiala a collection of cartography, history, and curiosities composed around 1212 for the entertainment of Otto IV, that in India there is a Mons Caspius, after which the Caspian Sea is called, between which and the same sea Gog and Magog, most savage peoples, were enclosed by Alexander. I heard an interesting theory last night. Back in the day, savage, if you look it up in French, I guess back in the day, it meant people that lived off the land. That's what it actually meant back then. You know, and they were enclosed by Alexander. The Far East is still psychologically very far off indeed in the 12th century, the original context of this map. The position of Gog and Magog just beyond Babylon, in or at the edge of the Caspian Sea, bespeaks a view of a much smaller world than one of later maps.
Wow. Than one of later maps. Yeah, man. This is great stuff. So I'm unmuted, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's where it gets into the Bible stuff. It says, as in the revelations of the Pseudo-Methodist, Gog and Magog on the Ebsdorf map are cannibals. They are pictured in the midst of a northeastern area, walled off by mountains through which a passage named Port Caspi leads. The creatures are eating human body parts recognizable as feet and hands and drinking blood flowing out of them. A footless, handless victim is also depicted, according to the caption. Alexander enclosed the two wild nations, Gog and Magog. Who will be the companions of the Antichrist? So these people are going to be the Antichrist's companions. They're going to work with the Antichrist. They eat human flesh and drink human blood. Kind of sounds like a few movie stars and stuff. The Turks, Islam are also written into this hostile and ethnography on the edge of the map, but in Europe is the caption, the city and island of Tarkanta, which is inhabited by Turks of the race of Gog and Magog, a barbarous and wild people, who eat the flesh of young people and aborted fetuses. This is a traditional story taken from Ectus Ister. On the other hand, charges of cannibalism leveled against Jews of Fulda in 1235, an early example of the ritual murder liable, provide a vivid backdrop to the cannibalism depicted in the Ebsdorf map and suggest that the identification of Gog and Magog with Jews was not merely literary, but spilled over into real life. An extensive area of northern Asia is cut off by the sweeping curve of the Caucasus. So there you go. Back in 1235, they caught the Jews in Fulda eating the babies too.
Wow.
And these Tartarians are supposedly partners with the Antichrist. Yeah. Now you sit and take a look at how close, even though despite everything that the Roman Catholic Church has put natives through, they're still teaming up with them over here like they're best buds, right?
Well, I'm thinking about the griffin on the flag. Like, isn't that
that's the devil? That's a representation of the devil. Yeah,
exactly.
So, it's the home of the dreaded man-eaters.
What if these Tartars aren't such good people? But I mean, but that doesn't make Rome so good either.
No,
for killing them.
Well, we know all about Rome anyway.
So maybe all this is bullshit.
Maybe.
Oh man, now I'm really confused. I hate when I say that because it might make other people confused. But if someone else out there has got it, like Brian, I think you got it in your head and you kind of know what it is. I'm kind of envious of that, you know. So if you want to keep going, dude, as long as you want, feel free, buddy. I'll listen.
But why would Rome kill off the Tartarians. I get what you're saying, because Rome is the one that labels the people that they don't like barbarians, savages.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They like to paint the good people as bad people, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly what I'm saying.
So
yeah, I mean, it's confusing on what to think.
I get what you're saying. We got to pick through. That's the moment we're at. See, it's
I mean, this is good. I feel like we get somewhere, but
they were painting it on the maps back then.
It's on the maps. Honestly, when we did that show with all those maps, that was the best research, because you can see there's evidence there, and not only does it show you what's going on, it also shows you the science of the Earth too. Like when they started doing the ball shit. So you've got like people and how the lands will change and the names of the lands. I mean, it's right there. The evidence is right there.
Well, you just got to think about it, okay? All at the same time this was all going on, okay? Think about this. They changed it from, they turned the map into a globe map, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All of this in the Middle Ages. The Great Inquisition happened, where they went around and slaughtered thousands of Christians.
Wow.
Okay, they slaughtered the Tartars, put them behind a wall. Alexander the Great, okay?
Wow.
There's so much that happened. The Black Plague happened at the same time, right? They
murdering everybody.
They discovered the New World and came over here and murdered everybody.
They're just offing everyone, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Why?
Fuck.
Why? Why did they feel the need to come over here and slaughter the Native Americans for nothing? Right? Why?
That's what they do, man. They want to push the ball.
They
got to kill all the people that know the truth, and then make everyone else a fucking slave. After that,
like it does. That's what it seems like, man.
Here's your new education, bitch.
Yeah.
Shut up and pay taxes.
I mean, I was watching some stuff on the Roman Catholic Church the other day on a documentary. Some nasty shit went on back in the day here, man. Nasty. Right? Like these Catholic priests abused the shit out of these Native American children, man. Things you don't even want to know about. Just nasty. Things you would expect Satan himself to do. Right?
Exactly.
And now they're all prancing around over there in the Vatican like we're supposed to forgive them and they're such good people. You know, these Vatican priests, and you see it all over the news everywhere. They're just shifting these priests around. This church that everybody thinks is the Catholic Church isn't Christian at all. Right? John even understands the term universal means Catholic, right? So we're going to have a universal world religion. We're going to have a universal world government. There's a whole big campaign on YouTube right now to try to discredit everything that we're saying right now, right? Between Simon,
that's a great point,
and Knowing Better, and all of them other channels that I show you, Johnny. They're all trying to discredit this new world order. And that's the main conspiracy that we can all hang on to, that the flat earth fits into like a fucking glove, right? Because to have the new world order, Johnny, they need their globe. It's a global world order, right? That's what it's called. It's the new world we're living in right now, Johnny. Right? What happened? What happened back in the day? I don't care who the Tartars are. I don't support anybody right now. I just want to know what the fuck happened 1,500, 2,000 years ago. Are we missing 1,000 years? Right? That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Where are we at in Revelations? I already see that saints, Christians have already been slaughtered under the hands of Rome, the Antichrist. What's next? Right? What's next? We're in the end, man. Right? I'm not going to say it's tomorrow. Comes as a thief in the night, right? But we're allowed to keep our eyes open. We're allowed to watch. We're allowed to pick apart the Bible. We're allowed to pick apart society and see exactly where we're at in time. And we have to figure out, did they fuck with us with the Gregorian calendar and take 1,000 years from us, or add 1,000 years from us to us? I don't know.
This is the end. My only friend.
Jesus Christ said on the cross that this is the end. You're in the end times. When Jesus Christ died, that was it. When they killed God's son, that's when the end times started. That's when the tribulation started. That's what the Bible states. That's when all this shit hit the fan, Johnny. It's been nothing but downhill for us since then. So according to prophecy, the Antichrist is going to be taken out, which is Rome. I can see Rome. If Rome don't fall soon, I don't know, man. I don't know, because there's an awful lot of campaigns going on online right now and on media pointing out exactly how pedophilic that institution is, how sick it is, right? So are the people going to call for the downfall of Rome? I think so. But out of that, when Rome falls, that's when the real Antichrist is going to be revealed. He's going to be revealed. Right? So just pay attention. That's not going to happen today or tomorrow.
Oh, so you're saying that? So you're saying when they finally get conquered and shit,
Yeah.
there's going to be a fake Christ.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Which comes out of Rome. Right?
Okay.
So Rome never really truly dies, does it? It tries to scrape on, tries to live on, right? But the whole thing's crazy. I'm just, I'm out there. But, Rome slaughtering thousands of millions of Christians back in the day really says a lot. That really says a lot. That tells.
I mean, the stuff we went over and we talked about or thought about is just crazy, because you're right, dude. What they did was they just killed everyone on Earth.
Yeah. They took over.
Started over.
That was a world conquering. And they used Spain, and they used England, and they used France, and they used whoever else they could get, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Think about the Opium Wars in China, between China and Europe. Happened around the same time, right? They came over to North America, actually, and got the natives high on opium, right? Remember that? I remember reading that story, So they were sitting there, yeah. Dirty dogs.
Wow, man.
But no, I'd like to hear what John has to say about the 10 Lost Tribes, Israel.
I think he's probably sleeping.
Yeah, probably. I think that's all I got, man.
No, I mean, it was. I'd like to add to it, but I mean, I'm just trying to retain everything, honestly. But
I mean, the book goes on and on and on, right? It would take us forever to read it. Province of Gog, in which the Jews were confined in the time of Alexander, king of Prussia. Magog and these two are races big as giants, full of evil manner, Jews who King Alexander collected from all parts. Wow.
So, I mean, I think pretty much giants are real. I don't know why they say giants aren't real,
Well, the Smithsonian will prove to you that giants are real. They got all kinds of giants locked up in their basement. Giants were all over North America, man.
How big do you think they got?
I don't know. I think they got to be like 11, 12 at the most, 13 maybe.
You don't think there was like 30-foot giants?
I think maybe back in the days of Noah there might have been. Before Noah, before the flood.
Yeah, because their genes, they had the genes, but they had half giant genes and half human.
Kind of died down over the years, God put a sentence on mankind. He said, you're only going to live 120 years. Because before that, men were living thousands of years, right? Methuselah lived 1,000 years, man. So imagine how big you could be, grow in 1,000 years.
Wow.
Think about all these, I don't think all of these fossils that people find are false either. I think a lot of them are. But I really think there was something to the giant animal thing. I think there was much bigger animals back then too, because they were living longer, right?
Yeah, that's a great point, man.
It was before the flood.
Yeah, and they probably just exaggerated the reptile thing with the dinosaurs. They just were just the animals we have now, but just not as big.
Right.
But I mean, there could. What do you think about the dragon, the griffin thing? Like, do you think that's true? Like, they killed all the dragons in 700
That's
with
what
poison or something?
that's what makes me wonder. It says in Revelations that the Leviathan is going to come out of the sea. Leviathan's also known as a dragon. There's dragons in the Bible. That's why I'm wondering. Did something big already happen? I really think there was dragons.
Godzilla. That's why that Godzilla shit's so prevalent. Like coming out of the water and all that shit. The Asian movie. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, man.
Crazy. You think that already happened, huh?
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, they might have already killed them all, dude.
There's an awful lot of tales about the big dragons, though. Dragons.
Oh, yeah, man. There had to be dragons, dude. I'm pretty sure on that. Like, I don't believe in all the dinosaur species they say, because those are just a bunch of bull rhinoceroses.
Yeah.
Rhinoceros is what it is.
That's a good point, too. That's a good point. So all these people out there sit and label us. They say, oh, those guys, they believe anything. And that's not actually true, right? We actually boil our beliefs down to be pretty simple, right?
You know how much time like I spent trying to figure out the mud flood? You think I jumped right into that, like thinking it was real, like right away? Like, no, I knew it was a psyop. I was trying to figure out the psyop. That's what we do. We figure out the psyops.
Yeah.
Like real truthers figure out the truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The rest of you guys just try to fucking have agendas and push shit, you know, and like try to sell shit, you know, and like have Patreons, and you're all fake as fuck. Like we're really, I feel like me and P are like some of the only true truthers or researchers are trying to figure like shit. I don't know what the truth is. I don't know anything. I'm just here to experience.
Holy shit! I missed this. Look, I missed this one. So, the Benedictine monk Andreas Walsberger of Constance made a world map in 1448, which is now in the Vatican. Des Tombs transcribes a caption in the far northeast. It's called Val de Chat, the capital of Cathay, where the great Khan resides. Cannibals eat human flesh. So it is Rome that's writing these things. Figure of a cannibal. Gog and Magog, land of the Red Jews enclosed by the Caspian Mountains. Walsberger's map testifies generally to an enduring belief in fables and monsters. Listen to this. It says in captions, and around this pole, the Antarctic one, are most amazing monsters not only of the animal variety, but even among humans.
Wow.
So that come from a Benedictine monk. And this map is now in the Vatican. So the Vatican took this and hid it.
So what I got from that was, remember that time we heard that they took all the weird people and they put them up on like an island up somewhere
up north?
Yeah.
Yep.
Because they started doing all these experiments and shit, and they kind of messed up. So like the half human, half people, like they started shipping them off, you know.
They call them the apocalyptic people.
Yeah, that's what that reminds me of. I'm rolling a blunt for this B. This is a good show, man. Congratulations. I mean, I'm going to see the money rolling in pretty soon. I'm starting a t-shirt company, and I figured, you know, you can be a part of it, and, you know.
Here we go.
Yeah.
No more plugs for the t-shirts, man.
Okay, my bad.
The
cut that out.
Here, read in the West, from this people that is from the tribe of Dan Pratt, Antichrist, or will be born. Opening up
wait.
By means of nefarious arts, will come to the mountain chain that encloses them.
That's funny, dude. So, like, Glowbusters shut down.
They did. They ran.
Or they're gonna come up with something. This is a show, dude. This is still a show.
Bob and Jaron and the Globebusters should be absolutely ashamed of themselves for the lie that they just pushed on Behind the Curve to shut down the Flat Earth movement. You two, you should shut your channel down. You should run with your tail between your legs. Really. Because you deserve it. because they didn't provide any proof in the documentary. Okay, we got thousands of people now running around like chickens with their heads cut off, talking about Bob proved the Earth is a ball. Bob proved the Earth is a ball. Bob proved blah, blah, blah. We got rock lovers shooting off all over the fucking place. Right?
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it didn't provide an ounce of fucking proof, Johnny. Not a
Oh
lick.
man, this is funny because I was talking to Cumby like 2 years ago in Miami on the beach, and he's like, "Man, wouldn't it be funny if they just came out one day and said, 'Oh, we found out it's a ball. You guys are all idiots.'"
Yep. Yep. We proved it through all of our research,
Yeah.
all your hard-earned money.
That's exactly what they did, man. And
Thanks
they
for the
ran.
trips to Sweden, and thanks for the trips to Banff, and thanks for the trips here and
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Thanks for the free weed. Thanks for the trips across
Oh
America
man,
in the
remember
hotel
Jake?
room,
Yeah.
first class service. Thanks for
And
the
guess
tools.
and who does Jake? Yeah, thanks for everything. And who does Jake go hang out with? IPS. Yeah, that's fucking great.
And through this whole thing, man, we've been right the whole time.
I know, that's crazy, isn't it?
We've been right the whole time, and it's funny how we got written out of this, but that's good in a way, because
Yeah, just keep on not mentioning any of us because I appreciate it. Like, just don't say my name, and we're good. And the reason I'm allowed to talk shit is because I'm not. You guys are the shills. It's not me that's the shill. So I
Right.
kind of have free range. You got to give me free range on that. Add a little comedy in there. Sell my T-shirts. Like, let me get my little market. With my 2 friends, and then we're good.
Yep, they can eat popcorn and talk about the popcorn all they want. Just leave me up.
Yeah, just leave us alone. Like, let us just keep researching shit. Like, it's gonna get better. Believe me.
Let us
We
keep
got more.
skills.
Yeah, we'll just keep researching, doing our thing. You just leave us alone, and then slowly, we won't even say your names anymore.
So what was it? 4 days ago. Was it 4 days ago that IPS came out pointing out that Wesley, whatever name, was a pedo? I'm not sure.
I think the last 2 days, like,
2
it
days.
seemed like 2 days or 3 days ago is when that happened.
All right. So we have figured out that Trolls versus Trolls is Glenn. All right. And now we know that Trolls versus Trolls and Flat Earth Reset are working together. Right. We got this other fella, Antonio, saying that Jeff is Flat Earth Reset again.
Wow.
Right. We got people making videos about Jeff and Glenn. Unirock even's getting into it, interviewing Timmy. And who else? P. Mars. P. Mars is now the spokesman for Flat Earth, man. That's
P.
where we're at.
Mars is
P.
famous,
Mars.
dude. P. What up, P? He's famous.
Fist bump.
P. Mars is the spokesman for Flat Earth. He knows all about it. I mean, he probably does a good job of it.
So I was tempted several times yesterday to try to jump on Uni's live stream, but I was like, no, I just can't. I'm not a shill. I can't do it. I should, though. I was getting so mad. I was like, man, these guys are telling this story so wrong. And I was like, but that's what Uni wants. He doesn't want to hear my side of the story. You know what I mean?
What's up with Uni's gloves, dude? Like, that's so weird. He's got like these gloves and he cuts the fingers out. Like, are you like, is this like a job? Yeah, no, it's a job for him. And like, he's working so much, his hands, or is it cold in his house? Maybe
he's bad.
He's cold. He's cold.
He's bad.
He's got a shiny thing,
man. Michael Jackson has had a new documentary come out on Netflix along with Behind the Curve. Right?
What?
Been a crazy. You didn't hear about that? The new Michael Jackson documentary?
No.
Called Leaving Neverland. 2 guys are coming out fully fucking blown out, spoken, saying that Michael Jackson raped the shit out of them.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
All the radio stations are pulling Michael Jackson's songs. They're pulling Michael Jackson's music off all the shelves.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Dead serious, man. It's called Leaving Neverland. Damn. But I recommend everybody go watch Behind the Curve. It's an excellent, thrilling, stunning, riveting, interesting documentary.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, popcorn's great.
Popcorn's great.
Not the popcorn, but popcorn.
Just popcorn.
Yeah.
Where's he been lately, anyway?
I don't know if he's feeling well. He's probably at Patty's, like, chilling, drinking wine or something.
He never did get back to me. So this says the same is true of Gog, which is written just outside the enclosure, along with the picture of 2 cranes attacking the dwarves. The later, likewise identified as Gog, inside the enclosure, inscriptions identify the Hebrews, who lead an excessive lifestyle, and the tribe of Dan Pratt, from which the Antichrist is born.
Once the Antichrist is born. Sorry, Dan.
I'm not.
We didn't believe that you were a Christian after all.
Oh my. That was too good. The life of excess. That's what got me.
Okay. I had a good point at the end of my Star Gods Reptile video, which is I'm tired of people stealing our ideas. Like, we can talk about all the ideas that were stolen from John Comby that Russian Vids took, and then all kinds of people, and then it just goes on and on. Dan Pratt, like, you got to quit stealing people's ideas too, man. It's pretty crazy, dude. Like, you steal a lot of shit.
People actually steal so many of my ideas. I have to psych them out with videos sometimes. I have to pretend I'm researching one thing and then totally flip and research something else, right? So that, and it's funny because I'll watch them go off too. They'll take what I researched and they'll go off with it, and then the next week I'll come out with a different video.
No, that's funny. It's purposeful disinfo. Like, I put out these like 3 videos where there's all purposely disinfo, and I put on the video, this is disinfo. You know, like, it says in writing, like, this is disinfo.
And they ran with
it. And then now all of a sudden there's like 3 patties. You know, like, everybody. Star God said it. Tim Osmond said it.
And one of them's reptilian.
Well, I didn't know Star Gods was reptilian until I got a little upset, and I was like, all right, let me look at Star Gods. And then he said that, like, you think I'm stupid or something? And I was like, whoa, his eye just morphed. I was like, you're done for, dude. I don't know. I think it's probably just digital. I don't know. But it is certainly known that there is a great diversity in the peoples who live around this mountain, so great number of people cannot be unknown.
Wow. So the people of Tartar were so great in number, kind of like, the sands of the beach, right? John showed me a scripture the other day that said something like that about the Israelites. Okay, so in the Bible, it says that they'll be blessed as the sands of the sea. So there'll be as many, Hebrews as there is sand on the sea. Anyways, and they could not be unknown. Great diversity. That's multiculturalism.
Yeah. That's what we saw. That's what we've seen in this research.
Right. That's what we got now. Tartars and many other people who constantly travel this way. Wait. Back it up. Especially since these parts are civilized enough to be visited frequently by our merchants as by other peoples who are Sorsams, Mingraci, Armenians, Circassians, Tartars, and many other people who constantly travel this way. Therefore, if these people were those who were enclosed by him, I believe that travelers would be aware of it, and they would be known to us. Therefore, I must conclude that these enclosed peoples are a long way from the Caspian Mountains, and are surrounded by impassable mountains and by the ocean sea, as though by 3 cords. And they are under the reign of Tenduk, and are called Ung and Mongol, which the common people call Gog and Magog, thinking that they are those who will break out at the time of the Antichrist and the tribe of Dan Pratt. Though this error certainly originates with some who distort Holy Scripture to suit their own beliefs, I base my argument on the authority of Saint Augustine.
Wow, dude.
whose book on the city of God reproves the opinion of those who say that Gog and Magog means those people who will be the followers of Antichrist. I do believe that the Catholic Church understands the Bible 100%. I think the Catholic Church knows a lot of the secrets about the Bible that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they abuse it 100%. The people called the Hung, these two countries, are ruled by Tenduk. This is the first I've heard of this guy. Of these, it is commonly believed that these people enclosed by Alexander in these countries of Hung and Mongol derived their names from these two aforementioned countries, which are called among us Gog and Magog, which opinion I do not believe. This land of Mongol is inhabited for the most part by the Tartar folk. In the far north, land of Mongol is inhabited, or in the far northeast, at the edge of the ocean, is this legend. Some believe that these mountains are the Caspian Mountains, but this belief is not correct. Morrow hesitates to banish Gog and Magog entirely, as he suggests they may be far away, surrounded by mountains and the sea, as on most world maps at the time. Yet he also denies their apocalyptic role, appealing to St. Augustine. He may even have in mind older versions of the Alexander legends, in which not Gog and Magog, but 22 or 24 unclean nations were enclosed. Finally, in the second text, alluding again to the enclosed nations, Fra Muero notes that these areas, Hung and Mongol, the names Marco Polo reports, are used for Gog and Magog, are under the reign of the Tenduk, and rejects the opinion that they are identical with Gog and Magog, as Mongol is inhabited by Tartars, aka Mongols. Therefore, he undermines the possibility he allowed in the other texts that the enclosed peoples still might exist somewhere far from the Caspian. That's right, they all live in Seattle. Or up north somewhere, maybe.
Oh, man, that makes sense.
Maybe, just maybe, there is 4 land masses up north. Maybe these Inuits that we're finding on the outskirts of Canada, up north, in Baffin Island and stuff like that, maybe they're exiled from
the North Pole.
Hyperborea. You know what I'm talking about?
Those four continents that are up there.
Yeah.
So maybe some of these people are still alive and they live up there.
Maybe that's why we can't get up there. Maybe that's why they discourage us now to go. Don't go to the North Pole by yourself. You need to ask the government. You need to do this. You can't just take a skidoo and some skis and some food and some dogs and a sled and go, because you'll die. Right? This is what they tell you. But yeah, same as the ice ring. Why
you
are
might run into like, remember
giant.
that giant? Yeah, the giant Sasquatch guy, like in the
the abominable snowman.
Yeah. They always make them creepy. It's got worse. Instead of just cannibal like eaters, now they're just like monsters. You know.
All right, so it was the Ptolemaic map that changed and helped set the maps for Europe. So it says Ptolemaic world maps, based on Ptolemy's description of the world, enjoyed a vogue among humanists in the 15th century and helped establish a more secular image of the world beyond Europe. So that's Roman Catholic's version. Ptolemy was a one of them science Jesuit guys, Masons. Generally, they eschewed the legendary contents of medieval cartography. One variant of this classicizing cartography is the Sallust map. The Genuvian Sallust map is one of many made in the 15th century as illustrations to the De Bello Inauguricino. Unlike any other maps of its kind, this one seems to have been influenced by non-humanistic texts, culture, and thus includes Gog and Magog, who live in but different abutting territories. If you can chew on that.
Yeah, of course.
I can't see Gog or Magog on here right now.
No, I couldn't. It's hard to see, like.
Yeah, and I can't click it either, so. But I mean, look at these maps. They're detailed. They knew where the cities were, right? They knew
Of
where
course.
everything was. They know where the rivers were. They knew where the ocean was. Right? They knew where the
They
big
made their
mountains
maps
were.
differently, like much
Yeah,
differently. Like
yeah.
they drew pictures and stuff. I mean,
And could you get from here to here with this map, though? No, right? If I was given this map to travel across wherever this is, I wouldn't have a clue, right? It
well,
just
you'd have to know where you were at and have a
I'd be like,
compass.
I got this map.
Well, if you're at the Turnburn like tower thing,
Yeah,
and you know that the water's that way,
right.
then you know there's a city there, and you know how the water's shaped.
I
You're
suppose.
good. Yeah. Now you know how the water's shaped, so you know where to go and shit. I guess. I mean, you might get a little lost, but back then, people just get lost. No, I don't know. In a circular world map from 1470, included in something atlas in the something something, one reads north of the Caspian Sea, almost at the end of the world. Gog and Magog / the Jews of the 10 tribes of Caspia are enclosed here. Wow. Directly outside the gate, holding them. Well, of course that's in the North Pole.
Wow. A
Clear.
reference.
Yeah, go ahead.
A reference to the ancient tale of the pygmies and the cranes. I've never heard of that. I gotta look that one up, man. I gotta look that one up. The pygmies and the cranes. In an art scene was popular with little pygmies armed with spears and slings, riding on the backs of goats, battling the flying cranes.
Wow. Flying cranes. And
Yeah. A pygmy fights a crane. So were these cranes trained? Were they pterodactyls?
these have to be dragons.
Dragons that looked like cranes? The
No, these are
pygmy
those bird dogs.
were a
They're
tribe of
like half
diminutive. What's diminutive? Small? Does that what that means? Small?
humans.
Small humans? Let me see. Let's look
The
up.
pygmies.
Diminutive and extremely or unusually small. Okay.
Oh, because the cranes wanted to eat them.
Wow. Cranes were getting all crazy on them.
Yeah, they
Riding
were
on
probably
backs of goats.
extremely or unusually small.
With a
I think
flock of
the
hares.
mud floaters were talking about these people too. Remember, we were making fun of them for it.
The pygmies were often portrayed as pudgy, comical dwarfs. In another legend, the pygmies
Eaten by
once
birds.
captured Hercules and climbing all over the sleeping giant, attempted to bind him down. But when he stood up, they fell off. Okay, here we go. Saint Augustine mentions the pygmies in the City of God. Book 16, Chapter 8, entitled Whether Certain Monstrous Races of Men Are Derived from the Stock of Adam or Noah's Sons. No, and I read somewhere else that the Tartarians were of the line of Cain. So,
Or Gog and Magog were from the line of Cain.
yeah, that's it. That's right. Interesting.
I'm trying to do the memory thing. Be like I might not be like participating, but I'm trying to retain it. Like just
No,
there's a
you
way I can put it in a room in my brain or something.
nailed that one. That's what a pygmy carrying a crane looks like.
It's a leprechaun, dude. Leprechauns are real, man. I don't know why they didn't have a bird like in the movie The Leprechaun, like attacking the leprechaun like that. It makes sense, but that's probably why he wore that big hat and those big shoes and all
Well, they were well hung.
that.
What's the city of God? No wonder they bred so much, right? The City of God Against the Pagans. What is this now? Is a book of Christian philosophy written in Latin by Augustine of Hippo in the early 5th century AD. The book was in response to allegations that Christianity brought about the decline of Rome and is considered one of Augustine's most important works, standing alongside the Confessions, something and on Christian doctrine and on the Trinity. As a work of one of the most influential church fathers, the City of God is a cornerstone of Western thought. Wow. Expounding on many profound questions of theology, such as the suffering of the righteous, the existence of evil, the conflict between free will and divine omniscience, and the doctrine of original sin. Okay, so the sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 left the Romans in a deep state of shock, and many Romans saw it as a punishment for abandoning traditional Roman religion for Christianity. In response to these accusations, and in order to console Christians, Augustine wrote The City of God, arguing for the truth of Christianity over competing religions and philosophies, and that Christianity was not responsible for the sack of Rome, but instead was responsible for its success. Which is when Rome turned into Roman Catholic Church. He attempted to console Christians, writing that even if the earthly rule of the empire was imperiled, it was the city of God that would ultimately triumph. Augustine's eyes were fixed on heaven, a theme of many Christian works of late antiquity, and despite Christianity's designation as the official religion of the empire, Augustine declared its message to be spiritual rather than political. Christianity, he argued, should be concerned with the mystical, heavenly city, the New Jerusalem, rather than with earthly politics. So a little bit about the City of God, anyways, because we were getting into the pygmies and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Leprechauns and freaking giants.
They did not exceed 3 spans. That's 27 inches. My TV's bigger. The climate is healthy and always spring-like, as it is protected on the north by a range of mountains. This tribe Homer has also recorded as being beset by cranes. It is reported that in springtime, their entire band, mounted on the backs of rams and she-goats and armed with arrows, goes in a body down to the sea and eats the cranes' eggs and chicks, and that this outing occupies 3 months, and that otherwise they could not protect themselves against the flocks of cranes, would grow up, and that their houses are made of mud and feathers and eggshells. Mudflood. Aristotle says that the pygmies live in caves, but in the rest of this statement about them, he agrees with other authorities. So Aristotle
They
says
have
they
to live
didn't
in
live in mud
caves.
huts. I think they lived
They
in
have to. Well, they probably lived in caves or whatever because the birds would eat them.
Imagine
Dude,
if
they got on the backs of like rhinoceroses and shit, and like went to the sea and ate the crane eggs. Holy shit! It's just like what's that movie like, Lord of the Rings or whatever? Oh shit!
Okay. And as to the pygmies, he said that they lived underground and that they lay on their side of they lay on the other side of the Ganges and lived in the manner which is related by all. As to men that are shadow-footed or have long heads, and
What?
as to the other poetical fancies which the Rheaties of Skylax recounts about them. He said that they didn't live anywhere on the earth, and least of all in India. So they had long heads. Is that the elongated skull people that we see all the time?
And as to the pygmies, you said that they live underground. They lay up on the other side of the gangs and lived in the manner which is related by all. As to the men who are shadow-footed or have long heads.
Long heads.
Okay.
Look, the cranes are almost taller than the pygmy. Oh, look at that. He needs a shield. It's a good thing they didn't live near eagles or anything.
Oh, wow.
Oh. These men be the best workers of gold, silver, cotton, silk, and of all such things. Well, I bet you they were good miners because they were so small, right?
You fit right in that little hole.
Yeah. And they have oftentimes war with the birds of the country.
I told you the birds, dude. Imagine being that small and having to worry about some big ass birds trying to eat your ass. Damn.
But they have great men amongst them of our stature that till the land and labor amongst the vines for them. And of those men of our stature have they as great scorn and wonder as we would have among us of giants, if they were amongst us. Huh. So we were once a giant race to the pygmies.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we can't sit and imagine a giant race to us, can we? Can't be anybody out there bigger than us, right? That's not that's implausible, man.
Great point.
Huh. Interesting. I never knew that about the pygmies.
3-span long.
3-span. 3 apples high. Is that where the Smurfs come from?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, with Gargamel.
Yep.
And what was the name of his cat? Azrael or something like that?
Dang, man, you're nailing it.
That's the name of a fallen angel too, Azrael.
And all their mushrooms are the psychedelic ones.
There you go. That's why they were blue. Ate too much colloidal silver, see?
Exactly.
Listen to Alex Jones too much. All right. Well, that's it. Alexander the Great.
That's who it was, huh?
That's been talked about a lot in this. So he created one of the largest empires of the ancient world by the age of 30, stretching from Greece to northwestern India. It's interesting to note that Alexander the Great is also mentioned in biblical prophecy. He died in Babylon in 323 BC. All right, so he fits right in around here. Like, you know, he could have built that wall, folks. He very well could have. Makes a lot of sense. Huh. Let me see something here. I haven't typed this in yet. I've been meaning to. Oh. What's this one? There's a statue of him there, Lo. He died 3 centuries before Christianity officially appeared, but his cult was so strong that some symbols connected with the ancient Macedonian king were adopted by the new religion. Anyway, I'm looking for this. Alexander the Great was mentioned in the Bible, and he knew it. Here we go. That's what I'm looking for. The civilization-altering life of Alexander the Great is well known to most students of history, but there is one chapter of his saga that is seldom discussed, as it is fascinating. Not only was Alexander's reign predicted in the Old Testament long before he was born, but when Alexander visited Jerusalem, the high priest showed him those Bible prophecies. The priest explained, "Alexander, these prophecies are about you." If you're not familiar with these intriguing chapter of history, you may be astounded to learn how Alexander reacted to that statement. Alexander was born in 356 BC in the city of Pella, the ancient capital of Macedonia. His parents were Philip II and Olympias of Ephesus. From his father, Alexander learned the art and science of warfare, but historians agree that his mother was far more influential in his life. From her, Alexander inherited a profound love for learning and also his fiery, sometimes ruthless nature. During his early years, Alexander's mother constantly told him that he was part god. Her family had long claimed to be descendants of Achilles, the demigod. She told him that this meant some divine blood was pumping through his veins. Of course, that's all nonsense. Achilles was a myth, and Alexander was a mortal man like any other. But it's important because of the profound effect these stories had on Alexander. He believed he was descendant of Achilles, which prompted Alexander to study all he could about the demigod. In his adult years, Alexander even carried with him a copy of Homer's Iliad, which chronicles Achilles' conquests. Every night he slept with this book under his pillow. He carried it with him into every battle. When Alexander was young, he was personally taught by Aristotle. Among the subjects Aristotle taught him was the Hebrew language. In 336, when Alexander was 20, his father was assassinated. Alexander ascended the throne of Macedonia and took command of the massive army his father had spent his life assembling and training. Campaigns and conquests. Here we go. So Alexander embarked on a great military crusade that his father had spent years preparing for, the conquest of the Persian Empire. So, for several generations before Alexander, the Persian Empire had dominated much of the known world, including some Greek cities. Many in Greece and Macedonia felt that it threatened the very existence of the Greek way of life. Just before entering into Asia Minor, there we go, to wage the campaign, Alexander's mother pulled him aside and told him that his true father was not Philip, but none other than Zeus, the king of the great pantheon. She had always told him that he was the descendant of Achilles, but now she took this delusion a massive step further. He believed it. It was the last time Alexander would see his homeland and his mother. He sacked the cities of Sidon and Aleppo, and he conquered Syria and Egypt. And from what we're reading, they're leaving out China and the Tartars. Okay, Jewish. All right, here we go.
Yeah.
Alexander, these ancient prophecies are about you. Josephus, the Jewish historian who we hear so much about all the time, who lived in the 1st century AD, said that when Alexander was just about to enter the city of Jerusalem, the Jewish high priest at the time, a man named Jaddua, met him on the outskirts of the city. He led a procession of affluent residents of Jerusalem. They hoped that by walking out to meet this mighty warrior, they might keep Jerusalem from being destroyed by his army. So they made Alexander pause. He entered the city peacefully. Once inside, they showed him the passages in the book of Daniel. Daniel was written back in 535 BC, about 180 years before Alexander was born. Okay, that kind of ties, things up a little bit. We know that because Daniel 10 verse 1, in which Daniel says he wrote in the 3rd year of the reign of Cyrus the Great. Historians agree that would have been around 535 BC. So Jaddua would have shown Alexander such passages as Daniel 11, 2, and 3, which discuss the Persian Empire pushing against Greece and eventually being conquered by a mighty Greek king. There you go. Wouldn't that be something to be shown your own self in the Bible as, hey, this is you?
Wow.
That happened,
That's crazy, dude.
And it wouldn't have been the Bible as we know it now. It would have been just the book of Daniel.
Yeah.
Right.
Just so that you know, I might have to switch devices here in a second.
That's all right.
Yeah. So this guy, Alexander the Great, he was the king of where again?
Macedonia.
Macedonia, which is where?
Sec here. Macedonia is over in the Middle East somewhere. All right, so it's over by Greece. It's over by Greece and Albania, up by the Tartarias, up by Tartar land.
I don't know where all this mythological stuff is coming from.
Wow. Yeah. That was a tangent under the... What's this? Adopted the legend. Some Ptolemaic maps adopted the legend of the enclosed Jews, which along with Gog and Magog was passed down well into the 16th century. two very medieval little maps, mere woodcuts that cannot compete with the elaborate learning of the large Mappamundi or Ptolemaic maps appeared around 1480. And I think those are Jew hats. Pointed Jews' hats protrudes. The text reads, Caspian Mountains, Gog and Magog enclosed. Wow. Gog and Magog enclosed. So
Yeah.
the Great Wall on one side, a mountain on the other, and an ocean on the other side. And so my theory is they escaped via the ocean and came over here to Cape Breton Island, which would be directly opposite of where they're at in this story. Which would be where Glooskap would have came from, is around this area. This area right here.
It says that they went with the drift of the ocean or whatever, and it took them to Cape Breton.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. But they're saying that John Cabot went down below the southern hemisphere and used the trade winds to get up to Nova Scotia and the currents. I think the Tartars just went straight across. They said, the hell with your currents. We're just going to row. Or swim.
Probably.
Or whatever. Well, them taters are strong, right?
Yeah. Them taters.
No, I can't laugh. I could be part Tartar.
You are. You said you were.
Oh, man.
Damn, dude. I got to switch devices real quick. It's been a really good show, man.
Yeah, man. We've been at it long enough. I think that's... we can cover it again another time, too. I mean, there's lots there. So...
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I might be live later.
Yeah. If you can get John on, I'll come on for a bit.
All right, cool, man.
I don't even think you have to make this one private. You could probably leave this one up, man. We're pretty good in this one.
Okay.
Behaved ourselves. Good little tater tots.
Yeah, well, there you go, people. There's your Tartar mud flood figured out for you. All right. I'm glad that you feel better. Feel better about it now.
We figured it out for us all.
Yep. All right, man. Well, I guess I'm going to end it because my thing's dead.
You take her easy.
Hey, man. Yeah, awesome show, dude. And I'll talk to you in a little bit. I got to go get beer.
All right, man. Have a good one.
You too, man. Later.
Bye.